Good morning, CLC. It's a pleasure to see all of you. Welcome to today. I invite you to just take a nice, deep, cleansing breath, breathing in cool, calming oxygen. And as you breathe out, release all stress and tension you may be holding in your body. Release all doubt and anxiety you may have in your mind. And if you feel so inclined, go ahead and take another nice, deep, cleansing breath. Breathe it into the corners of your heart. And breathe out all that no longer serves you. Allowing your body to just relax in this moment. And allowing your mind to be here now. Universal love enfolds me. Universal wisdom inspires me. Universal spirit enlightens me. Universal power encircles me. I am one, and all is well. As we begin this inner healing process, let me invite you to relax in quiet confidence, opening yourself to the miracle-working higher power. Now symbolize the unity of your thinking and feeling nature by touching your chest with your hand, and let my words act as your own. For your own inner healing, acceptance, and receptivity. I acknowledge that there is a power, intelligence, and wisdom greater than my own. I am in the midst of it, and it is in the midst of me, sensitive and responsive to my every thought, word, action, and feeling. I now make this true for myself by saying aloud, I acknowledge. Acknowledging this higher power working through my life, I admit that I am personally responsible for solving my own problems while being guided and assisted by something greater than myself. As I am ready to surrender the conflicts of my ego to the wisdom of this infinite presence, I simply speak these words. I surrender. Knowing that forgiveness is the key to unconditional love and the feeling of heaven, I now unconditionally forgive anyone and everyone who has ever injured me in any way, real or imagined. And I now forgive myself for all of my mistaken judgments and their resulting actions. From my deepest level of understanding, I now say, I forgive. I forgive. Realizing that I continually experience the effects of my own thinking, I now choose to allow this higher power to recreate me deeply, filling my mind with thoughts that are only positive, constructive, loving, and beautiful. I call upon this divine inflow by stating aloud, I choose. I now center upon that one special idea that I'm willing to accept as real for me in this coming week. Visualizing that idea as already acted upon and brought to pass. In seeing my idea become a fact of my experience, I enjoy the happiness and peace of my thought fulfilled and gratefully speak these words. I accept.
I accept.
Knowing that I have an everlasting place in the midst of the power that sustains all creation, as well as the support of all those around me, I allow myself to relax in the peace of fulfillment and gratitude and say, I release.
I release.
Now, in my mind's eye, I envision the presence of someone near and dear to me. This can be a friend, a family member, a teacher or mentor, someone who has touched my life in deep and loving ways. Someone who may not be physically present in the room with me this morning. I turn toward that image in my mind's eye and say, I'm grateful for the good in your life. Now I open my eyes, turn to the world around me, and joyfully speak to anyone physically present in the room or virtually on this broadcast, and share in confidence and gratitude in saying, I'm grateful for the good in your lives.
Good morning. Welcome to Creative Life Spiritual Center. My name's Jesse Jennings. I work here. Most Sundays I work here. Last Sunday I didn't, and you were treated to a phenomenal talk by Danielle Markadell, practitioner. If you're new with us and you don't know her and you didn't see it, and first you're hearing of it, check it out on, I don't know if it's still on Facebook, but it's definitely on YouTube. And it was just brilliant, and I felt as it was occurring in real time, both a wave of pride that she has been a student of mine and of ours in this place, and also a pang of guilt because all of you had to come through miserable weather to get here to hear her. I was guilty to a point, and then I turned over and went back to sleep. But she was finishing a series, a 5-part series on a process. Why am I wearing this? On a process of prayer that we have called spiritual mind treatment. I know it's an old-fashioned name, and it's a way that you align yourself with the divine intention, I guess you'd say, the energy of the cosmos that seeks expression through the self, but we sometimes resist. So we go into this form of prayer to facilitate an easy expression of divinity through us, power through us, and willingness through us. And the last step of these 5 that Danielle took was release, where we let the thing go. So what I'm here to talk about today and for the next several weeks in February is change, because this is what happens after release. Now, here's the peculiar thing about change. We want it, except when we don't. You know, our motto of this organization called Religious Science or Centers for Spiritual Living used to be, they change mottos every 5 years with a new marketing company. But the motto used to be, change your thinking, change your life. Change your thinking, change your life. You'll still see that. And that's very exciting for people who want their lives to change, but not everybody does. And actually, the people who do want their lives to change don't want their lives to change all the time. They want their lives to change incrementally in stages up to a point where they get comfortable with things. They want to, in other words, be able to manage things. This is what we want, is to manage change. Wouldn't it be lovely to manage change, except sometimes you can't, because change comes and gets you, and the world changes around you, and things change, forms change, So what I'm here to talk about is complicated. I don't have like a real specific set of advice for anybody about what to do with change. It's more like, let's talk it out. That there are different types of change that we have to face in different ways. There's cultural change, there's global change, and there's our experience of change. And this is the one thing that we tend to be able to control, is our experience of change. How do I feel about change? How you can tell you feel about change is look at change in the small ways and see how you react to that. Like, I don't know, your favorite restaurant goes out of business. What are you going to do now? You know, how do you roll with that? Does this like really disrupt your life, or do you say, hey, something else will come and take its place? You know, the small losses that we have in life, the little gains that we have in life, how do we react to these? This will tell us something about our capacity for resilience in change, so that then we can work on that. Now, something Danielle brought up last week was, and I didn't write it down, and I should have written it down, but I don't look at it if I write it, but I should have written it down. It was either, you used a word, and it was either progress or process.
I use both words.
She used both words. She used both words in different ways. That was it. But you used it, what I'm thinking of is you used it in a comforting, encouraging kind of a way. You said, look, don't give up because it's process. Because it's a, yeah, you got to do the hands, you see, because it's a process. Don't give up because it's a process. Life is a continuum. Stuff is continuing to happen. Where we are right now looks like it's all there is, but what it is a point on an infinite plane. Does that make sense? We've always been, and by we, I mean all sentient beings, all living things, really every atom, you know, has always been, and we will always be, and right now we're here. Right now we're here. And so we wake up every morning and we take possession of the here that we're in, and it looks like this is all there is. And we measure ourselves constantly in terms of how we're dealing with the here that we're in. Am I happy? Am I healthy? Do I have any money? You know, how are my friends? Am I winning in my goals, in my career, in my strategies in life? But in the big picture, it's all a process. It's all a process moving through us. Now, there's a patterning intelligence to life. Our teacher, our founder of our teaching, Ernest Holmes, he says there's a patterning intelligence, not a planning one. Meaning that there's not some like consciousness separate from its creation that moves things around and decides you ought to be over here and just kind of, you know, a puppet master really kind of thing. No, it's a patterning intelligence, so that when you set a plan in motion in your life, it tends to conduct you into the experience of other people who have similar plans. So if there's a favorite restaurant you eat at, it's working for them to cook for you. See? They're happy about this. It's a place where people pass through and they work there, and some of them cook, and some of them serve the food, and some of them pay the bills, and everybody's having an experience of it. And you go there, they go there every day, you go there once, however often you eat out, you know, at that kind of place with that kind of food, and you go there and you have an experience, and it's a meeting. It's a cross-pollination is what it is. All of these different energies get together for a moment, and they have this experience. And that experience in a restaurant is transactive, you know. You pay money, they give you food. That's how it works. Same is true. The bus pulls up, everybody gets on. It's a random group, it looks like, who've assembled at the bus stop. The bus shows up when it shows up, you get on. But there's a school of thought that says there's a consciousness around that group that assembled at that particular time. There's a school of thought that says there's a consciousness when you merge onto the freeway in your car. Do you have any control over who else is there when you get on? Of course not. Or do you? Or do you? Is there a patterning intelligence that brings all of this together? Well, a way that you can kind of test this or play with it is change your attitude about what you're what you're going to face, your expectation set of what you're going to face, and see if it makes a difference. See, like for example, you go out, you say, I got to drive on the freeway. I got to get on 45 today, to go someplace. And 45 is a racetrack, and people are crazy. And oh, by the way, it's the full moon. And so you have this sort of expectation. And so when life lives down to those expectations, you're not surprised. You see, I told you. This is how people are. This is how people. What if you say there's a patterning intelligence here, and in perfect alignment, perfect choreography, I'm going to merge into the traffic, and we're all going to happily and easily find our way to where we're going, and it's going to be an easy, relaxing experience. It's going to be a neutral experience. And this is what you want when you're driving, is you want uneventful. Like people, they fly places, and they say, how was your flight? How was your flight? You say it was uneventful. That's a good thing. That's a good thing. So you want an uneventful flight. Well, what if there's a patterning intelligence that we play into that can make change easier? We say this or something better. This or something better. That's a powerful declaration to make in prayer. I have an idea of what I want to manifest in prayer, but I'm open to it being something better than that. Because the idea of that I have in mind for what I want to have happen is predicated largely on what's already happened in the past. Because that's my experience of how things are, you see? And so if somebody says, well, you got to go to the dentist, or you got to go to the barber shop, or you got to do this or that, or the other thing, an image jumps to mind. It's kind of like if you have a dog or cat and you say the word vet, right? Or you get out the dog or cat carrier or whatever other triggers you have for this. They react, right? Because they're thinking, this was not pleasant last time. I'm not, or bath, that's another one. I'm not looking forward to this. Well, you and I, they could change their opinion about it, but we know we can. We could say this is going to go easily. This change is going to be mellow. This change is going to be peaceful. Now, this works when you work it, and the only real hitch to it is in not working it, and the only real reason to not work it is if you love drama. If you like a lot of chaos in your life, and some of us do, right? Some of us just do. I'm not sure why. It's a whole psychological study, I'm sure. I think my personal opinion is that some of it goes back to coming up in a dramatic environment as little kids, and it's not comfortable, but it's familiar. And so, like you hear people say, well, it's too quiet in here. This is too peaceful. And so you got to haul off and kind of slap the person next to you and get something going, literally or figuratively. Get something started, a tussle kind of thing going. And we do this in consciousness. We say, I need something to resent today. I need something to push back against. So if I don't see anything, I'll start something. Just to have that. I know this sounds ludicrous, but I think we do this sometimes. It also gives us the illusion of control in the sense that if I started this, I can end this. I can kind of modulate this rather than waiting for incoming experience that I have no real agenda with or kind of agency over. So the question to ask ourselves is like, am I really willing to be at peace? And I heard these songs about peace and about change so far today. Am I really willing to have that in my life? Or do I get something from throwing myself around the room when things don't go the way I expect them to, when there's some surprising element to life that I hadn't anticipated? Maybe it makes me look a little stupid. If I didn't see this coming, people are like, you didn't see that coming? But life is wild and spontaneous. It really is. And deep down inside, we want it that way. We want it that way. See, as we go through these talks this month, I'm going to weave in some stories relative to Black History Month. And next week, I'm going to weave in Valentine's Day because it's there and weavable, you know. And then the next week, Mardi Gras. But I look at these experiences of life that we have, and so we have an attachment to an interpretation of certain things, a certain expectation set of how things are going to go, and things surprise us. Sometimes things are better than we thought they were going to be, and sometimes things are worse, and sometimes things are just different. There's a saying in 12-step work that things get real, and then they get different, and then they get real different. Have you heard that before? Okay. Somebody had an idea to take music in a new direction. When I was in high school, now there's a school of thought that says that the music that influences you, basically, you're influenced up to the point of about, if you're into music at all, okay, and the popular music, that by the time you're 17, your tastes are kind of set. And you kind of got your playlist, you know, and everything else is sort of an add-on to that. So when I was in high school, my playlist would have been Grateful Dead, and other things too, but that was largely it. And prog rock had just come along, and like Emerson, Lake and Palmer, and you know, this kind of thing. But I didn't know it. But in 1973 in the Bronx, there was a young man named DJ Herc. DJ Herc showed up at a party with 2 turntables, spun the turntables and started reciting poetry over it. Started reciting poetry in triplets. And the poetry was heartfelt, and it was angry, and it was longing, and it was painful, and it was beautiful, and it was rap. And it was the beginning of rap 50 years ago. The Grammys tonight are going to celebrate 50 years of rap, 50 years of the hip-hop culture in which rap occurs. Now, when I was a kid, and music critics were looking at the music of the time, they developed a new term called confessional music. And confessional music, as it was isolated in those days, was people like Laura Nero, you know. That was who they assigned confessional music to. And why she stood out was because she didn't sing about stuff. And she didn't sing about boys, except sometimes. It wasn't about, you know, things. It was her feelings. And especially her sense of inadequacy. And her sense of estrangement. And that was part of what fed into rap, is she gave some permission there. And everything that came before, my point is that everything that came before, people look at stuff and they'll say, whoa, this came out of nowhere. Listen, nothing comes out of nowhere. Everything comes out of somewhere. Everything is the latest iteration of an ongoing experience. Music is a continuity. Music doesn't stop and not compose anything for a while and then erupt in some new form. All of these things are happening. There's tendrils of energy moving around. And this thing where DJ Herc had 2 turntables and started reciting poetry to, I don't know, a handful of people. And somebody said, this is interesting and this is powerful and you should do more of this. And some others hearing this decided they would be the ones to do more of this. And before too awfully long, rap was happening in Compton, and it was happening in Atlanta. It was happening here in Houston. It was taking off. And the white world was like, whoa, what is this? This is really different and strange. And this doesn't sound like prog rock. You know, this doesn't sound like prog rock, progressive rock, you know, synthesizers and kind of fantasy music and stuff like this. And it doesn't sound like jazz, and it doesn't sound like this. And this is where the human mind goes, is like, how is this similar to what else I know? And if it's dissimilar, if it's paradigm busting, you have nowhere to put it, and it may make you uncomfortable, and if it makes you uncomfortable, it may make you critical, and if it makes you critical, it may make you mad. And so you'll hear white people to this day saying, well, I don't like rap music. And it's like, how much of it have you heard? Well, you know, but I know I don't like it. I know I don't like it. When I was a little kid, I didn't like figs. I didn't like stewed figs. You know how many I'd had? None. But I saw my grandmother, who was old world, and she'd stew. She was an old Danish woman. You stew stuff, you know. And she'd stew figs and give everybody a plate of these. And I was like, that looks nasty. I don't want any of that. And they're like, well, you should try it. Have you done this with your kids? You have kids? You should try it. You should try it, you know. And but no, I didn't want to, because it would have let down my value system, which was to be critical and better than, you know, in that moment. So we look at things, or in the case of music, we listen to things and we say, well, this is strange and different and everything else, and this is what a lot of people said outside of the African American community. And I'm sure there were African American people that were startled by rap as well. But I'm just saying, it was mostly the white world that was like rocked back on its heels by this, because now this, I have to say this, you know, white people say, this sounds so angry, this music sounds so angry. You listen to a lot of white rock and roll? You ever hear of metal? You know, Metallica's angry. Black Sabbath is angry. It's part of the expression. But this was a different kind of anger, because this wasn't stagecraft. See, this was coming from lived experience. Lived experience. And my point here is that strange, different form of music is now the best-selling form of music on the planet. On the planet. And 50 years from now, it probably will be still. However, 50 years from now, it will have adapted and evolved, because all things do. All things do. I don't want to make this all about music, but on a somewhat related note, little musical pun there, David. I was watching some videos of you ever hear of a musician that you think, I should have known of this? How did I not know of this person? When you think you're all hip and plugged into the musical world. Joe Zawinul. You ever hear of Joe Zawinul? They're looking him up now. He was co-founder of Weather Report. He passed in 2007. He was from the mountains of Austria. And he came into American jazz and revitalized it. And he's considered really the founder of electronic keyboard music. He developed the computer technology for electronic, working with Stanley Clarke and Herbie Hancock and others. And you see this, there are performances on YouTube that are absolutely stunning music, especially from Newport Jazz. And what he saw was a music that was, I don't know what kind of, I don't want to be silly and say what kind of music I think they play in, you know, the Austrian Alps that this man would have grown up with. Lederhosen and horns come to mind, but, you know, he falls in love with black American jazz and becomes a band leader and becomes a force for its presentation on the world stage. This is how things work together. Whatever goal you have, whatever inspires you, whatever enthralls you, is going to be a bit disruptive to the rest of the world. People are going to say, there's a favorite saying now, you've heard it many times, stay in your lane. People will say, stay in your lane. You're good at this, but not necessarily this and that and the other thing. And this over here is stewed figs. Okay, so you want to stay in your lane, keep your eyes on the ball, and just, you know, forge straight ahead and do what you can. And that's not enough for you. That's not enough for you. And you know how I know that? You would not be in this room this morning. You would not be watching this channel on whatever platform you're on today if that were enough for you to just do what was handed to you by tradition. You want more. You want more. So the willingness, I think of a word that was used by this person herself, and we applied to her, and it has recently been applied to a second beloved of this center, Reverend Marcia Lehman and Ruth Catalona. The word fierce has been used in both instances. And Marcia actually had it on her tagline on her emails, fiercely loving life coach. We have this capacity for a fierce appreciation of life, to look change, not just roll with it, not just deal with it, but look it right in the face and say, bring it, bring it, bring it. Let my body change, let my thoughts change, let my intentions change, let all of it change, let all of it change. Because back of it all, and this is the spiritual part in the last 2 minutes you're getting today after my long-winded musical journey with you, the spiritual part of it is there is a changeless container in which all change occurs, and that changeless container is spirit. That changeless container is, if you want, God. It is changeless because it is infinite, so it has nothing to change into because there's nothing outside of it. Does that make sense? It's the only thing that is infinite, and within it is the capacity for change and the capacity for growth. And you can trust, if you develop a spiritual practice of connecting with this one, you can trust that whatever change occurs is going to take you someplace useful. It's going to be a process of growth for you that you either saw coming or that you didn't, but you're going to be okay. You're going to be okay because you exist in this overarching container that is spirit. You're going to be okay. We only self-harm when we fight the change so much, and we say, let me cling to this, let me cling to this. And we'll talk more about this in the weeks to come. One last thing, and I want to say this now in the talk because some stuff gets edited out and as it should, the announcements and all when we put on YouTube and this. In celebration of Black History Month and in celebration of Black History period, we have had created at this center something called Soul Sessions. We've been doing these since 2017, and these are conversations between various of us, often me, and guests or members of this center who are people of color and or who are gay and lesbian, trans people, people who are making a difference in the world in one way or another, who all have an interesting story. And it's a conversation. It's not an interview. It's not a debate. It's really more of a free-floating kind of a thing. You can see all of these on our YouTube channel. There's a playlist called Soul Sessions. Click on it, and they're all on there, okay? And you can, each one also has, they're about to get retitled, but each one has a paragraph or so under it telling you what the general thrust of the conversation was. We have the next one of these coming up, which Danielle, again, will tell you about in the announcements, but on the 15th of this month, a week from this coming Wednesday night, Norma Green, who was present in the March on Washington in 1963 and is a community organizer and activist, we're going to have a conversation about the world today as it stands and her work in the world and her history, because she's living history. And this is the thing you've got to know about history, is it didn't end in the Middle Ages. The history is happening right now today, and all of us have walked a path that brought us here, and that's our history. So I encourage you to watch these, and I encourage you to tell your friends about them. And you might say to yourself, well, I might see some things on there that I don't agree with, okay? Remember the stewed figs. I don't know, this might be a little, this might shake my worldview or something. Well, maybe it will, maybe you'll learn something. I've learned a whole lot. Because stuff lives in your head, and you say, well, here's how it is, and, I love all people equally, and this, and then, but I haven't really listened to their stories, quite as much as I could have. And so here's an opportunity for that. And you find, finally this, you find in everybody wants the same fundamental things. The worst bigot in the world, whoever that might be, wants somebody to love them, and they think they got to do what they're doing, and that's a whole other story of change and re-education and so on. But everybody wants the same thing. So the container holds us all in perfect love. Thank you for your kind attention. This thing called spiritual mind treatment, Lisa's going to do here at the end, and you'll get to hear one, and she's expert at it.
I want to thank each and every one of you again for your presence, your love, your support, and any and all monetary donations that you give to us. It is because you give to us that we can be here for you, and we love being here for you. So thank you for continuing to support us, and we just want to support you in every way we possibly can. With that, now I invite you to say with me, divine love, through me, blesses and multiplies all the good I am and have, all the good I give and receive. I am prosperous now, and so it is.
And now I have to do a treatment. I don't have to. I get to. I just have no idea what I'm about to treat about. Although I will say that I did mention the weather, and it's beautiful out there right now. And the clovers in my yard are blooming. And yesterday it was 35. And if you've been watching the weather, I know north of us, the oak trees have just taken a beating, so there's going to be a fair amount of cleanup. And then if you keep going north, the weather's been all kinds of. So, for those under the auspiciousness of the Arctic blast, I think that's where I'm going to go in treatment today. And we're going to hold them in love. And then whatever else you need, know that we are holding you in love as well. So let's know together that there is one life, one power, one presence, one love. I am a part of that life. I live that life. That power flows through me. That love flows through me. I'm a part of that presence, just as I know that each and every one of you live that life. That power flows through you, whether you know it or not. That love that you love starts with that divine love. And then we individualize it into the myriad kinds of love that we have. And that presence makes itself known through us, as us. And so as we open our hearts up to those who have been under the weather of any kind, so I'm going to include anybody who's got the flu going around or whatever respiratory nonsense is happening because it's cold and wet. For all of those who have been under the weather and those people who are dealing with the actual physical weather of the snow and the rain and all of that, know that we hold them in love, that we hold them in safety, that we hold them in comfort, that they know that they are held by something bigger than they are, that they are held in divine love, and that the resources that they need to manage the situations that they are in are already in motion. They are in motion and on the way now. And I'm grateful to know this. I am grateful to have this kind of faith. The faith that it's going to be okay. No matter what the situation looks like now, it's going to be okay. I'm grateful for a teaching that teaches me that. Not what to believe, but how to believe. Not what to have faith in, but how to have faith. I'm grateful for this place. I'm grateful for this community. I'm grateful for our ministers. I'm grateful for that divine love that individualizes out into each one of you. So I'm grateful for you. I'm grateful for the musicians. I'm grateful for the technology. And I'm just grateful. Because grateful is another word for love. And I relax into this knowing. I relax into this faith. I relax into this love, knowing that it is done, even as I speak these words. And so it is.
Say it with me now. Something wonderful is happening through me.
Something wonderful is happening through me.
I feel it in my body.
I feel it in my body.
I feel it in my mind.
I feel it in my mind.
I feel it in everything I am.
I feel it in everything I am.
I choose it.
I choose
I
it.
trust it.
I trust
I
it.
use it.
I use
And
it.
I love it.
And I love it.
So it is.
And so it is. Yay!